Hi besties, welcome to today's video where we're going to be going over some romance book recommendations. If you are someone who is a romance reader or a hopeless romantic, or if you're trying to get more into reading romances, then this is a really good video for you. In the beginning, I'm going to be going over all the books that I recommend that I have already read before and absolutely loved. And then after that, I'm going to be going over some of my anticipated reads or highly anticipated romance reads for this month as well as in the future that I'm excited to read. So that way you have some books that I recommend that I've already read and know are really good, and some books that I am really excited to read and hope that you read too. So first, let's get into all the books that I highly recommend that I have read already. And of course, in honor of Valentine's Day, I figured this was the perfect way to give you guys my romance book recommendations, because I've been wanting to give you guys these recommendations and figured this was the month to do it. Also, in honor of Valentine's Day, I figured I would do 14 books for Valentine's Day, February 14th. So I chose 14 of my favorite romance books to recommend to you guys, and they're all right here. And then this stack of books is the books that I am highly anticipating and really excited to get to at some point. Some are on my TBR for this month, and some are ones that I'm looking forward to reading this year. You wanna jump up? Come on. Everyone say hello to Molly in the comments. Give her all the love. Okay, so first books that I'm going to recommend to you. There are two of them that I read on my Kindle. Yes, hello. The first book that I'm going to recommend to you is Curse of the Wolf King. This is a book by Cassandra Odette, and it's part of the Entangled with Fae series. I really recommend this series in general. These are really cute fantasy romance reads, and they're really light on the fantasy. So if you're not someone that is really too familiar with fantasy or doesn't really read fantasy too often, then these books are still great reads for you to try out and check out. But they are part of the Entangled with Fae series, and they all revolve around a fairy tale retelling and a princess retelling. So this first book that I'm going to recommend to you is A Curse of the Wolf King. And this book is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's a really, really good book. I really enjoyed it. It did follow the Beauty and the Beast storyline, but it also took some twists and turns, which made it its own. And it was really enjoyable. I absolutely loved the way that Cassandra Odette wrote it and had a really good time reading it. It was a lot of fun and really simple fantasy read. So I highly recommend that book if you are looking to kind of ease into fantasy, or you would like a romantasy read. That's a really good one to start with. The next book I'm going to recommend is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This is a hockey romance, so if you are a big fan of hockey romances or you want to try out a hockey romance, this is a really good one. I will say, however, that this one is very steamy. It is open door for sure. So just a forewarning going into that book, if that is not something that you are a fan of, there is quite a bit of that in this book. But if you don't really mind that, or you really like steamy books, then I highly recommend reading Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. It revolves around two main characters. One is a figure skater and the other one is a hockey player, and they are having to share the same ice rink. So this book has forced proximity in a way, and it also has found family trope, which are two really fun tropes that I absolutely love to read. And if you enjoy that, then you'll probably enjoy this book. The two main characters butt heads. They're kind of enemies to lovers. It's a really good book. So enemies to lovers, kind of forced proximity, and found family tropes. It's just a really cute, fun read. So highly recommend that as well. Next book I have for you, two books actually that I have for you, are Emily Henry. She is the one and only romance author. She is so good at writing romances. I absolutely love her books. She is most definitely an auto buy for me. Anytime that Emily Henry comes out with a new book, I'm getting it. So the first one is Beach Read. I love this book. This was such a good book. I will say that there is a bit of grief that is talked about, but to be honest, I thought it was really well talked about, really well handled. It really added to the story, and I really enjoyed the two main characters in this book and thought that their chemistry was so good. It was perfect, and I loved the main character. Gus is precious. He's so cute. He's so precious and like the perfect book boyfriend. Absolutely loved him. And January, the other main character in this book, she's going through a lot. She's going through some grief, and she is getting her dad's lake house. And so she's going to his lake house and she's like going through it, and she's planning on, like, she's deciding if she's gonna get rid of it or not. And so she stays there and she meets one of the neighbors, and his name is Gus, and they just kind of connect from there. And it's just a really cute small town romance, friends to lovers, and it is in a lake house, and it's just, I really, really love this book. So much about it. Emily Henry is really good with her words and the way she writes. It's amazing. Whatever she puts in this book, oh my gosh, I eat it up every time. So if you have not read an Emily Henry book, I highly recommend it. And Beach Read is a really good one to start with. And as you can maybe tell, there's some tabs in it. These are from my friend Shells. She put tabs on it, and I want to go back in and I want to put my tabs and annotate it. It's well worn, but it's well loved, and it's such a good book. And then next is the other book by Emily Henry, Happy Place. This was such a good book. I also rated this 5 stars. It was such a good book. There are certain things talked about in this book, like mental health and stuff like that, that are really well talked about, or like the way that they are brought up. It's very casual, but so important. Like the way she talks about it, I absolutely love it. I don't know, like I said, the way she writes is incredible. Like, she's amazing, an amazing author. So really good book. And this one revolves around a summer cabin, summer lake house as well, but it is a group of friends, and they are all getting together at the same place that they usually go to once every summer. It's one of the characters' parents' cabin, and they are planning on getting rid of this lake house. Not cabin, lake house. The parent is planning on getting rid of this lake house, and so they do one final hurrah at this lake house and all get together and spend the weekend together. And it's just a really good, close-knit group of friends, and the romance in it is so good. Starting out this book, the two main characters are engaged and actually broke off their engagement, but their friend group does not know that. So they have to play it off like they are still absolutely in love with each other and that everything is fine for their friend group, because this is their last hurrah and they don't want it to be a bummer and be about them breaking up, because everyone thought that they were perfect for each other, they were always going to end up together, and that they were the perfect definition of romance and love and the perfect couple. So they have to hide it, and it's also forced proximity because of that. It's fake dating, but they're already, like, they were together before. It's lovers to enemies to lovers, and a really close-knit friend group, and it's just such a good book. Highly recommend. Just know that all these books I highly recommend. Which, speaking of, the next book that I'm going to recommend to you is Divine Rivals. If you're not new to my channel, then you know that I've already raved about this book. This is one of my absolute favorite books. I love it so much. So Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This one follows two main characters. Enemies to lovers is a big trope in this, and it also revolves around war, which is between two gods. And so there is a little bit of fantasy in here. It's kind of a modern fantasy. However, I say modern lightly because this is set like years ago, back when they were using typewriters at the Gazette. So the two main characters are journalists at a Gazette, and they are fighting for the same position, and only one can have it. And so that is why they are enemies. And the special thing about it, where the magicalness of it comes into play, is that these two typewriters that they use are magical typewriters. And that might sound cheesy, but honestly, this book was so well balanced between the war that's going on and the fantasy aspect of it and the romance in this book. Oh my gosh, it is so good. Like, the two main characters in this book are meant to be, like, literal soulmates. Like, it's so precious the way that Rebecca Ross wrote this book. Amazing. So good. And it's the perfect, like, fantasy magical vibe. The way she writes, it's like almost lyrical, but I absolutely loved it and ate it up. The two main characters go onto the front line of the war, and they are covering what is happening on the front lines of the war. And so there's action in this book, there's romance, there's high stakes. And a little bit also about this book too is that between the two main characters, Iris and Roman, they are writing to each other by typing up a letter, and then they fold it and they slide it under their wardrobe. And because the typewriters are magical and they're connected, they're part of a trio of the exact same typewriter. All three were made with magic, and so the three typewriters can connect with each other and send letters to each other, and Roman and Iris have two of the three. And they're able to send letters to each other by sliding the letter under the wardrobe, and they are talking back and forth to each other, but Roman knows that he's talking to Iris, and Iris doesn't know that she's talking to Roman. That is not a spoiler. That's something that you know going pretty much into this book, and it's a really neat part of the story. So, highly recommend Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Then, next book I recommend is To All the Boys I Loved Before, and as I'm going through this order, this isn't in any particular order, I just grabbed these books from my shelf and just set them all in a pile, so it's not going in order of like my top favorites to least favorites or anything like that. All these books are really good books that I recommend, and they are different genres within romance. So there's going to be some fantasy romances, some cutesy rom-com Hallmark vibes books, and then there's also some that are more like literary fiction with a huge subplot of romance. So that way it's a good balance of books for depending on what kind of reader you are or what kind of mood you're in. So with To All the Boys I've Loved Before, you probably have heard of this whether you've seen the Netflix movie or you've read this book before, but this was such a good story. I absolutely loved To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and I ate up the Netflix movie. Oh my gosh, so good. And if you have not heard of this before, the main character in this, she wrote these love letters to the crushes that she had when she was younger, and she folded them up and she kept them in a box, and she was never planning on doing anything with them. And then she finds out that her sister somehow, I think, finds them and mails them out to each of the boys because for some reason she put their addresses on the front of the envelope. So they get mailed to each of the crushes that she had at one point or another, and one of them was her sister's now ex. And so her and this other guy at her school are fake dating because she's like so embarrassed and she like wants to pretend like she has a relationship and she doesn't love these guys anymore, and she wants to prove to them that she doesn't love them and that like she wants them to move on and forget all about the fact that she wrote these love letters to them. So she fake dates this guy at her school and they set up some rules, and it's just really, really cute. I love the story. I thought this was such a good romance, like I said, and I loved the Netflix movie. So if you haven't seen that either, I really recommend watching that too. But this book is so cute. I loved it. Then next is The Friendzone by Abby Jimenez. I honestly recommend all of Abby Jimenez's books. She is another author that is an auto buy for me. She is so incredible with the way she writes, and the way she blends together real life conflicts and issues with romance and all of that stuff. And normally I don't like super realistic books because I want to escape reality to a certain extent, but with these books, whatever she puts in them, they are so good, and I just love the way she writes. So she is an auto buy for me as well. But The Friendzone is following two characters. They are the best friends of a couple, and the guy is the absolute best friend of the guy of the couple, and the girl best friend of the girl in the couple, and that couple is getting married, and so the guy is the best man and the girl is the maid of honor. So they're it's forced proximity. They're forced to be together and forced to help out these friends with getting married and everything and to get along with each other. And so it's a really good enemies to lovers trope. They met before they realized that they were going to be together and that each other was friends with the same couple. And so it's a really fun book. I really like the way that this was written and the way they met and had to be forced to get along with each other. But it's definitely the type of book that is a literary fiction with a major subplot of romance because, like I said, there are things focused on in this book that are like serious topics talked about. So I really enjoyed that aspect and thought that that was a great addition to this book. And just made it more enjoyable, made it just something that felt realistic and at the same time like still gave you the butterflies and all the things that you're looking for in a romance. Next, I recommend Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is part of a trilogy, and it's also a spin-off series from another trilogy. So the first trilogy that was written by Stephanie Garber is the Caraval trilogy, and that is Caraval, Legendary, and Finale. One of the characters in that trilogy is brought into this series. It's kind of like the backstory of the character that is one of the main characters in this trilogy. He's not the main character in the Caraval trilogy, but he is brought up especially by like the third book and becomes a really important character, and then is one of the two main characters in Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. I have not read Caraval yet, but I have read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, and I absolutely love these books. I love them so much. The main character frustrated me like no other. Well, the main guy character frustrated me like no other, but I absolutely loved him at the same time. It's just such a good book. It's definitely an enemies to lovers trope, and the two main characters, it's Evangeline and Jax. The banter back and forth is just so good. I ate this up. It gives Alice in Wonderland vibes. People will say, I didn't necessarily see that. I just saw like magicalness vibes and like whimsical, like there's balls and just the magic that's talked about in this book. There's fates, which is kind of like same idea as gods. They each focus on something different, and Jax is, I can't remember what his fate is. I think he covers love. Is it just, I can't remember if it's just love or what. Okay, so all of the fates are immortal, and they each have something that like is their main focus. So Jax is the Prince of Hearts. Evangeline thinks he's this big romance guy, and she is trying to win back this guy that she fell in love with, and she swore he loved her, but she finds out that he's supposed to marry her stepsister. And she's like, but he loved me. There's no way. Why are they getting married? He has to be under a spell or something. So she goes to find Jax, the Prince of Hearts, to try and strike up a deal with him to be able to win back her true love. And for any fate, if you strike up a deal with them, you have to return the favor, obviously. So it's 3 things that she has to do, 3 people that she has to kiss that are up to him. Like he tells her who to kiss and when, and she has to do it in order to fulfill this deal. So she strikes up a deal with him, and it goes from there in this book as well as the other 2 books. It was really, really good. I loved this series and the whimsical vibes of it and everything. It was just so fun. It's not like a traditional fairy tale or a traditional fantasy book. I really enjoyed it, and there's some fun twists in this book, so I really recommend this series. Next is none other than Ali Hazelwood and The Love Hypothesis, which is her first book in her STEM romance books. If you haven't heard of Ali Hazelwood before, she is known for writing books that revolve around women in STEM. So the main characters are people in the science field in one way or another, and so these 2 main characters, this girl is a student at a college and this guy is a professor, and she's been trying to avoid romance and love for a long time because she's convinced that she's not going to find anyone, she's not going to be with anyone, and that romance doesn't exist because she was with someone, got her heart broken, and she's convinced that love just doesn't exist and that she'll never end up with someone. And her friend, her best friend, is trying so hard to get her paired up with someone and to convince her that love does exist and that she's going to find her true love. So her friend is trying to help her find her true love, and she's really sick of it. She's sick of her friend trying to pair her up with someone. And so one day, the main character, she is working late in the lab, and she sees her friend coming down the hall to come say hi to her, and she like knows that she's going to talk to her about something that has to do with like setting her up with someone. So she does the first thing that she thinks of, which is not thinking right, not thinking straight, and the main guy character is walking past and she grabs him and she kisses him. And it goes from there, but it is not strangers to lovers because they know each other, but they're not too familiar with each other. So it's kind of strangers to lovers, fake dating, and it's really cute. Really, really good book. I loved the romance in this. I loved the 2 main characters. I thought the guy was so cute, so precious, and the friend, the side characters, I absolutely loved them as well. Like I thought they were so fun too, and they really added to the story. So The Love Hypothesis, I really recommend. It is such a good book. and I recommend all of Allie Hazelwood's books. I haven't read the third book of this Women in STEM series, but I really did enjoy the first two, and I'm excited to read the third one. Next book is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. Lynn Painter is another author that is an auto-buy for me. I absolutely love her books. This one is a young adult romance. This follows Liz and Wes, and they are just so cute. They are enemies to lovers, they are neighbors, and they go to high school together, and Wes always drives Liz nuts. Liz is very by the book, she's very particular on things, and Wes is very go with the flow, easygoing, and all of that, and it drives Liz nuts. So Wes will always pick on her. I think they share a driveway. Oh, no, they fight over who gets to park on the street in front of the house because it's limited parking, I think, and so only one of them can park in front of the houses and the other one has to park really far down the street. So they're always fighting over who gets that glorious parking spot and everything, and so it's become kind of this competition, and that feeds into the enemies to lovers. But it's more so enemies on her side than it is on his side. He kind of has this low-key crush on her and always has, and so it's really, really cute. This does have fake dating trope as well in it because he is trying to help her get together with this guy that she's been crushing on for a long time. He's kind of her wingman, but is it fake dating? I can't remember if it's fake dating or if he's just her wingman. I think he's just her wingman, and he's trying to help set her up with this guy that he's friends with, and she has this big crush on him and everything. And so Wes will bring her along to these parties because he's she's kind of the shy girl. She doesn't she's not close with really any of her classmates or anything like that, and so she doesn't normally get invited to the parties or anything like that, but he has an in. He always goes. He's friends with some of the popular guys, including the guy that she has a crush on. And so he brings her along to these parties and everything and kind of introduces her to her crush and everything like that. And it's really cute. The main character also, she is a big fanatic of rom-coms. And so this gives rom-com vibes because it's something special between her and her mom who passed away. And so it's really cute because she's really into the music and the musical scores of rom-coms and everything, and so she's big into music. So at the beginning of every chapter there is a quote from some rom-com, and then in all of the chapters she mentions a different song that she's listening to at that time. And so it was really fun because Lynn Painter made this a really fun book to be able to read and really get immersed into. She created a playlist and it's on Spotify, and it has all of the music that is talked about in this book and everything, and just all of the vibes of it. It's really, really cute. So it's a perfect rom-com. I really recommend it. And even though it's young adult, I thought it was really well written, really well done. Liz Painter is a great writer of young adult novels, and I absolutely love her books. So I ate up this book and highly recommend you read it. It's so good. Okay, we only have 4 left, and then I'll go on to my books that I'm highly anticipating reading. Next book is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. This book was so good. This one revolves around fake dating trope, and it's a celebrity and bodyguard. The bodyguard is the girl, actually, and the guy is the celebrity, and he reminded me so much of Zac Efron. If you've read this book before, let me know if you thought the same, if you pictured Zac Efron, but he was so cute. I absolutely loved him and thought that he was such a great character. And it's definitely enemies to lovers and forced proximity, as well as fake dating. The main celebrity guy doesn't think that he needs a bodyguard, but he has this stalker that isn't necessarily a serious threat, but his manager wants to be careful because it's gotten a little bit more concerning, so they want to have a bodyguard on site with him. But the thing is he's going home to see his family because his mom is sick. And so he's well, if I'm gonna have someone with me, they're gonna have to stay at the house, but I don't want my mom to know that I have a bodyguard because I don't want her to worry because she already has so much that she needs to worry about. So he talks about how he wants it to be someone that can blend in and that he can pretend is his girlfriend that he's bringing home for the holidays. And I think it's set around, I can't remember if it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything. I don't think it's Christmas. Either way, Jack, the main character, said that his main bodyguard, Hannah, has to pretend to be his girlfriend for the time being while they are staying at his mom's house because he does not want his mom to worry. So it's really cute because it's the forced proximity, fake dating, all that stuff, all the good tropes. I absolutely love this book. Ate it up like all the other books. It's so good, and I really, really recommend you read this one. It was so much fun. Next up is When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This one is also a small town romance. It gives country vibes. It's set in Rome, Kentucky, which is why it's called When in Rome. Amelia, the main female character, she is a singer. Amelia is at wit's end with her fame right now. Like, she's just needing a break. Like, she's really burnt out and just needs a break, and her manager isn't giving that to her, so she decides to take it upon herself to give herself that break. And before she goes on her next tour, like her new tour, she decides to just drive to the nearest small town and just stay there for a bit. She's a big Audrey Hepburn fan, and one of the movies that she absolutely loved of Audrey Hepburn's revolves around Audrey Hepburn's character going to Rome, Italy. And since Amelia can't necessarily just get a plane ticket and go to Rome, Italy, she decides to look up the nearest Rome to her and just pretend like she's going there. So she goes to Rome, Kentucky, which is nearby where they are. They're in Kentucky. So she drives, and along the way, her car breaks down, and of course, it breaks down right in front of none other than Noah's house. He is like this golden sunshine guy who's so sweet and caring and so precious. I absolutely love it. So it's strangers to friends to lovers. It's small town romance, and it was so cute. While she's in the small town, he's kind of showing her around and showing her all of the fun things about Rome, Kentucky, little old Rome, Kentucky, and basically romanticizing it. It's really cute. It gives Hallmark movie vibes, and I loved it. I ate it up. And next, going off of that, is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. This is actually the second book. It's interconnected standalones, and so you can read one without reading the other, but I do recommend reading them in order because it was so fun reading When in Rome and then going to this book and knowing the characters already a little bit going into this one. So with the first book, that's based on Noah and Amelia. The second book revolves around one of Noah's sisters. Noah has 3 sisters, so it's like one guy, 3 sisters. So you already know he's going to be this sweet teddy bear, but he's this tough guy too, and he's protective. But this one revolves around one of Noah's sisters. Her name is Annie, and she is not very good at love and like dating and stuff like that. Like, she's very rusty on it. She hasn't dated in a long time, and she's trying to get back out there, and she's really struggling. Anytime she goes on a date, it usually backfires, so she's kind of giving up on dating. And Amelia from the first book decides to take it upon herself and have her bodyguard help Annie get comfortable with dating. So she sets them up together, and it's kind of like a fake dating trope in a way and all that stuff. The main guy, he is teaching her how to date and be comfortable with it and all that stuff, and I thought it was really cute. I didn't think it was as good as When in Rome, but I did still think that it was really cute and enjoyed it, and I loved that there were still appearances of Amelia and Noah and just like the whole family aspect of it. It was so wholesome, and the small town vibes and everything. I loved it. It was so cute and just gave all the like homey, wholesome, happy vibes. And last but certainly not least is one of my absolute favorite romances, Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. Christina Lauren is actually 2 authors that wrote this book together, and they did an incredible job with this book. This one is childhood friends to lovers, but they always had like a thing for each other when they were younger, but they never really did much about it. Well, it's childhood friends to lovers to enemies to lovers. So there's a lot in it, but those are the main tropes, and it's really, really precious. It's just a wholesome story as well. And the 2 main characters, the main guy, he lives in this house, and the house next door to him is up for sale. And the main girl character, her parents buy the house that is for sale next door to his. So they meet each other when the main girl is moving in, but it's just their summer house. It's not going to be their main home. And so she only sees him over the summers. And so it's like this cutesy friendship that blooms every summer, and they get to see each other and like catch up on like what happened over that year and just like how each other has changed over the past year. And it's just so precious. They bond over books. They are both huge lovers of reading, and I thought that was so cute as well. Like, a book that revolves around reading. Like, I don't know, I thought that was so cute. And it's called Love in Other Words because they are big into words and reading in general, and so they each have like a word of the day, and it's so cute, and they just have such an adorable chemistry, and it's so precious and wholesome. I absolutely loved it and thought it was really well written. It is dual timelines, so it'll go to the present day and then it'll go to the past and talk about something that happened, and then it'll go to the present again, and it flows so well because like it'll be present day and something will be talked about, and then you go into the past and it covers what was like a little bit more in depth about what was briefly mentioned in the past chapter. So it's really, really cute, so precious. I absolutely love this couple and thought that it was so well written. Highly recommend Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. That is it for all of my recommendations for books that I have read before. And now we are going to get into the books that I haven't read yet and are my highly anticipated reads. And this is going to be a rapid fire speed go through. First book I'm excited to read is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This is the book I mentioned before. That is the third book in the Women in STEM series. Next book I'm excited to read, and this is actually on my TBR for February, is Red, White, and Royal Blue. This is a really cute book about two guys that have a thing, and I thought it sounded really cute, and I've heard really good things about it, so I'm really excited to read it as well. Next up is a fantasy book, and this is the author's debut novel. This is Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and I'm really, really excited to read this one. This is highly anticipated. I've heard amazing things about it. Everyone has raved about it and thought it was really, really good, and I'm excited to finally read it sometime soon. It is a thicker book, but I hope to read it in the very near future because I've heard really good things about it. Next up is another book by Ali Hazelwood, and it's called Check and Mate, and this is actually a young adult book, and this doesn't revolve around women in STEM. This is actually a new book that she was trying that veered away from the women in STEM kind of storyline that she was focusing on. And this is, like I said, a young adult romance and revolves around chess. And I think that that is so cool, and I'm excited to read it. I'm nervous because people say that it heavily focuses on chess, but I'm interested and intrigued to see if I don't mind that and if I still think that it's a really good book or not. So I'm excited to read that. Next is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. I've heard amazing things about this book, and I actually heard about this book from Alexa Ray, and this is going to be a low-key shout out to Alexa Ray because I'm also wearing her shirt. I happened to run into her at Disney in one of the parks and got to talk with her and her husband for a little bit, and they are just the most precious couple and sweetest people ever, and I was so excited to get to meet her because she is someone that is an inspiration to me as far as like starting this channel and really getting into reading books again. And this is one of her shirts that her and her husband actually were so sweet and sent to me, and it's from her first launch, her chapter 1 launch, and the back of it says Just a Girl and Her Books, and it's so cute. I absolutely love it. So that is just a little nod to Alexa Ray. Check her out if you haven't seen her videos already. She is such a sweet, wonderful person, and I absolutely love her videos. She is so fun. And going back to this book, she rated this book so highly. This is one of her all-time favorite romances, and I've heard really, really good things about it. So Archer's Voice, I'm excited to read. Second to last book I'm excited to read. This actually I checked out at the library, which, side note, I highly recommend checking out books from the library. This one is another Emily Henry book, and I have been wanting to read this book for so long. Book lovers, I've heard amazing things about it, and I really, really want to get to it finally. So I checked it out from the library, and I'm excited to read it. It is on this month's TBR. And lastly, also on this month's TBR is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I am so excited to finally get to this book. This is one that has been also highly anticipated. I've heard amazing things about it, and I don't think I've ever really heard anyone speak negatively about it or rate it lower than like a 5 stars. So I'm really excited to get to this book. I've heard nothing but amazing things about it. And I actually forgot one other book that I wanted to mention. If you are wanting the opposite of a cutesy romance Valentine's Day book, then I recommend If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nowlin, I think is how you say it. This one I've heard is gonna tear your heart apart, and it is a heartbreaking story. So if you want a good cry, heartbreaking book, then I recommend If He Had Been With Me. And I also recommend this book because the second book just came out. This one is in the main girl's point of view, and the new book that came out is in the guy's point of view. So if you want to have your heart ripped out of your chest twice and torn apart and you want a good cry, read these two books because that book just released. So I really recommend checking this book out and reading it for yourself. I haven't read it yet. I'm so scared to read it. I need to wait and read it when I need a good cry. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for, but I am highly anticipating reading it because I've heard really good things about it. So that is all of the books that I recommend to you and the books that I am excited to read for in the near future. But I hope you check out some of these books. If you have read any of them, leave a comment below what you thought of them, what you rated them, or any of the books that you are thinking about checking out yourself and excited to read yourself. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you aren't already, subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss another video when it comes out. Let me know down in the comments below if you like this video and what books you are excited to read for the month of February, and if you have any romance books that you're excited to read that give all the Valentine's Day vibes. Thank you guys so much for watching, and happy Valentine's Day. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day or night whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you real soon with my next video. Bye!